Hello there, friends, and welcome back to the New Blocks. We've got another 0x episode today. We took the week off last week. We did a great Twitter space. We took some live questions. Then Kevin was so tired he didn't have any energy left to do the podcast. So here we are. We're back again. I know I had to jokingly throw you under the bus because...
Throw me under the bus in the first 8 seconds.
It gives me pleasure to see you squirm, my friend. Welcome. It's December 12th. No, it's December 15th, 2021. As you can see from the beautiful 0x number. It is a date, by the way, for anyone that hasn't figured that out yet. Kevin, I leave for New York tomorrow, and then I go to Iceland. I'm going to go find Santa in the Arctic Circle. I'm going to go figure out where Santa makes the presents, dude. I'm going to go find him. I'm going to report back next time, and then I'm going to go to France for a week at the tail end. I'm about to leave for like a month, man. I got a whole daisy chain of airports and connections coming up. I'm very much excited about it.
I feel like I can't pin you down. Yeah, you talk about liking to see me squirm. I feel like you're always squirming around the U.S. and around the world.
Correct.
I am not going to be attending the one that you had mentioned in New York that you're going to go to tomorrow, although I was looking at the website. It looks kind of cool. It was like DeFi Con, is that right?
Hell yeah, buddy. DeFi Con. We're going to hop aboard DeFi chain, get on the DeFi train. It don't stop till Brooklyn, baby. That's where we're going to be staying. No, it should be cool.
That's cool.
You know, I'm not going to lie, man. The conferences for me kind of blend together a little bit. We get a lot of offers to speak. A lot of the times I get to speak are when they ask for someone else at the company and they're too busy or can't do it, and it gets passed down the ladder. You know, so it's kind of just like throwing the Frisbee around. And, you know, it's cool. I enjoyed the opportunities, but the actual cons themselves, I feel like what I talk about is always independent of the con. You know, I'm also speaking at a Chainlink thing. I'm not saying anything about oracles. It's just like Chainlink is doing a series of talks. One of the talks is about NFTs, so they're excited to have an NFT guy on with other NFT guys for that specific panel. It's like there's always, if it's a Solana conference or whatever else, there's always something with GameFi that they're like, oh, well, we want to hear the perspective of somebody that has their own chain, you know, because we don't really fit into any of the molds. We're like conference agnostic. Everybody wants to hear from us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I imagine I'll be at, not 100% sure, but I might be leaning toward going to ETH Denver coming up in, I believe, February. If I do, I will hit you up.
No way, bro. You're going to come hang out? You're going to come hang out with me again?
Closer to your neck of the woods.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of those sort of talks. Considering giving a talk myself at that one, I gave a semi-vague description in the talk request form. At the company that I work, build layer 2 bridging tools. So the talk title I gave was something like Bridging the Chasm from Web 2 to Layer 2. And that way I get to kind of decide if it's going to be about the stuff that I do at work or if it's going to be about just bringing people along for this journey into Web 3 and into, you know, the intricacies of different layers and all of that. So anyway, that should be kind of cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, buddy. You know, so it's been a little while. I want to start and talk about a little GameFi to get this episode rolling. You know, I'm in the Axie side of things, and there's this weird thing that happens. Like I see product cycles. They iterate so much more quickly in the crypto space. So you see these patterns that exist in the real world just in the hyperbolic time chamber. And, you know, we're the biggest game. We're the number one game. And we created that spark of proof of concept for play to earn. Now, that's really cool, but that means we built this thing a while ago and it's taken a while to scale it, and it just like jumped really quickly. So obviously the technology moves in the not really linearly, but in these kind of slow, it's not quite exponential. You know, the technology comes out in pieces and iterations, right? So our product offering is a little bit lackluster for the amount of users that we have and for what their expectations are as like the leader of the NFT gaming space and for the amount of money that we have backing us. Obviously, we know it takes a while for that cash to like get infused into the company and turn into hirings. But anyway, so a bunch of other GameFi games have popped up, and some of them are okay, right? We've heard about like Star Atlas and some of these other big sales that have done a lot of volume in terms of sales. A lot of that is NFT speculation around this kind of bull market. But There's a game that has popped up called Pegaxy, kind of like Pegasus and Axie combined in one. And these geniuses, Kevin, get this, all right? They took Zrun, that popular horse racing game where you breed the horses and then you race them, and that's on Polygon. And they took Axie, where you got the little blobs and you breed them and you battle them, and they combined them into one game. They took horses that race each other, but Axie breeding mechanics, and they created this amalgam of something that's like kind of familiar, but also kind of different. And it has scholarships built into the game, buddy. Scholarships that are just like, you buy a horsey, you click a button, and it's just out there, and somebody can rent it, and that scholar can rent the horse, and then they can race it, and then whatever they win racing, you split it, and it's all automated and really awesome. Now, here's the problem with Pegaxy, bud, okay? The gameplay is, there isn't gameplay. Now, get this.
A coin toss.
Get this. The races, they're completely random. It doesn't matter if you got a really nice horse, you got a shitty horse, or any horse, man. A horse is a horse. Some horses winning 50% of races. And the numbers don't add up on that one, because I think there's 12 horses in each race. So, dude, it's really weird. And it's like this
Is
funny...
it that, like, are you saying... Because my impression, or my understanding of Zrun was that at least the horses and their genetics played something into that. Are you saying that even that doesn't exist in Pegaxy?
Not yet. Apparently it will. So there's all these other layers they want to add, where each horse has all these different factors of like elements, like wind and rain and lightning. So, and different tracks have different elemental issues. So different horses are better. Like if it's a windy track, the wind horses are really fast. So it's not just about raw speed. And apparently they're going to add layers of gamification, where there's going to be a minute before it starts, you get to see the other horses, and I guess you could like put a saddle on it, or like choose your jockey, or you feed it carrots or blueberries, and I don't know, different foods. Give it different. Sure. Each food's a token, I'm sure. You know, but it's like everything else in crypto. It's easy to come out with an MVP and be like, "Hey guys, we're shooting for the stars." You might make it one day, there, kid, but it's like
a total addressable market is anyone that likes.
It's tough out there.
Video games.
Yeah, and it's like part of the point of breeding is that like you're breeding things that matter. So it's like you have this framework where you got founder horses and legacy horses and legendary horses, and like all the way down to your halter horses or whatever they're called. But if it's meaningless, like the gameplay is click a button, sign 3 transactions, and then print money if you place in the top 3. And then you do that 5 more times, and you go, "Hey, look, I made $100. This is cool." That should put the alarm bells are going ringy dingy dingy in my head, Jan. For another Office reference for you there, Kevin. That's a Michael Scott right there. Like that just doesn't make sense, right? So like they have a token just like SLP. It's called the Viz token, VIS, and that's what you get as a reward. It's the utility token for playing the game. And so, Kevin, as predicted, right, the first 2 weeks. Beautiful. Everything's amazing, right? Like stuff's booming. The growth is going up like this. There's not enough Pegaxies. It's like Axies where you breed them together and it takes a while and they got to cool down. So there's like, limited growth. And oh my God, the tokens, it's worth more than SLP. Pegaxy is the future. Well, guess what? It's a 2-week cycle to claim your Viz tokens. And since the explosive growth started, that cycle has finally happened. And guess what? The mint chart looks freakishly similar to the Axie one. Turns out most people just want to cash out immediately rather than put it back into the ecosystem. And it's going to be really interesting to see like Pegaxy, as it really is like this fast-moving use case of, all right, cool, you've got features, but you have no gameplay. Like for everyone that has ever said Axie is like a shitty game or the game isn't fun, like play to earn is just for the earnings. This game takes that to a whole nother level. It isn't even a game. Like at least in Axie, the breeding is a game, right? You don't have to play it all, but you could start breeding, and you're trying to breed combinations that people want to buy that are popular in the meta. In the case of the horses, dude, anybody can just smash breed on any combination. It's just as good as any other horse, dude.
Yeah, I
it's
feel
all
like
just
there's
money printing. It's so ridiculous.
There's like a bit of a chasm between when a project starts and when it's like really ready to be used. And I think when teams are just flushed with cash, whether it's through venture capital or some like token distribution. Um, the time that is spent like actually building something neat in during that chasm is getting shorter and shorter, and like smaller and smaller projects or like fractions of projects are being released with the uh claim that more things will be added. And right, like this isn't necessarily new to the space. Like anytime there is a boom in an industry, like there's going to be plenty of people. I mean, we saw this with ICOs, and there's going to be plenty of projects that just like don't make it out the door, and that just like fail immediately. And sometimes that's based on like it being an actual like cash grab, or other times it's just like it didn't gain the traction that the original developers wanted. It sounded like even within that there was like some clunky UX. We were talking to our one friend about this, about how every time you want to do anything in this game, whether you want to like open up the pen to your horses, you got to sign a transaction, and then you like take them over here and sign a transaction. So, part of this is just like, getting used to bad user experiences that happen in the early days of Web3. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, some of these projects I don't anticipate will make it very far past the like putting lipstick on a slot machine. This very well could be one of them. I don't really know enough about
we'll
it.
see. And what's cool is that like I actually talked to one of the co-founders in a Twitter space, and that's one of the reasons why I love these Twitter spaces, because you can sort of randomly connect with people in this live environment you might not connect with otherwise. And I don't know how many co-founders there are, but this guy in particular, he's an Axie fan. He has scholars and stuff, and there's obvious inspiration there. And he was actually like defending SLP to some of the FUD on Twitter. So I kind of like the guy, and I certainly don't like hate them. I feel like this is a project where it seems inspired by Axie for sure, but it is clearly different. So it doesn't feel like a ripoff the same way some of these other games were just like copy paste with really stupid shit. Like the board Axie Yacht Club, like that one is that's just a thumbs down cash grab. That's not a genuine effort to make a game. So I do think PegXE has done something interesting. I am really intrigued to see how their economy shakes out, but it is just interesting to observe, like, in the short term, people are so quick to flame and just spam, like, look, Viz is worth twice as much as SLP. And it's just like, yeah, but it's been a token for how long? A month? A couple weeks? I mean, yeah, guys, it's harder than it looks, because the more anything becomes worth in crypto, the more there is an incentive to abuse it or look for a hole in the system, break it, and or steal it, right? So like the more SLP is worth and the more prolific the system is, the more incentive there is for people to write scripts that automate it or hack it or look for exploits and all that kind of stuff. And that's one of the main arguments of why Bitcoin and these other networks like Ethereum are so secure, because it's one of the biggest bounties. There's like a permanent bounty to hack the network, right? If you could hack Bitcoin and take all the Bitcoins, you'd have an insane amount of money to put in your pocket, right? The bounty is always there because the network just has that financial value caked into it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that makes sense. Like you said, I mean, we're gonna have to wait for a lot of this to shake out. I anticipate that the life or death of a project, of many different projects, I don't know enough about this one, that many different projects that are being built at this time may depend on how this bull market plays out. Like in the last couple of weeks, we've been kind of in crab season where the prices have been kind of going up and down and up and down, and really just kind of moving off to the side, like not really doing a whole lot of one or the other. So I anticipate that, a project like that, while it's getting started, can survive while the bull market continues. If we do enter a larger bear market, I imagine, similar to the ICO phase, we will see a lot of these projects that just didn't gain traction quick enough and didn't really get adopters and users, probably won't survive. But it remains to be seen, sort of a time frame we're on. I'm generally optimistic of crypto in general, and try not to make predictions about where market cycles will begin or end. And I think if you just generally work from that mindset, then you can kind of figure out how to make it through safely. Last time we were talking after our Twitter space about how I have this way of talking to newcomers where I try to bestow the wisdom that I learned through the pain of 2017, 2018 bear market, where I joined in near the peak, and then got to see all of the money that I put into it kind of just like evaporate. And then, luckily I found the space to be very, very interesting and much more important than just the price of the token. But I anticipate that a lot of people getting into crypto now will have to learn that the hard way. And last we were talking about this, you sounded like you were agreeing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can explain it to anyone. And it's funny, gosh, man, those old platitudes, so many of them are true. Like I remember my dad telling me, so like most of life is what you make of it, and like almost nothing is objectively good or bad. It's all perspective for the most part. Some things maybe like the extremes, there's outliers and stuff, but my first investment is a great example where I spent $2,500 on a MakerBot 3D printer, and it was to invest in like some tabletop game. And of course, it failed its Kickstarter. The thing never worked, and then the MakerBot ended up breaking. So it was really like the double down gotcha, where it wasn't even like I could use the bot for something else. That company went out of business, and it was a whole thing.
God.
So like that $2,500 actually just evaporated. My first investment went from 100 to 0 and never showed a single return. So not great. And then I got into the stock market, right? The very first stock I bought was Zynga at the time. Very promising, mobile gaming, Facebook, Farmville, if you remember those times. Dude,
Yep.
Amazing stock. 2 days after I bought it, there was this huge exodus where like I think the CFO quit, a bunch of other people, and then they fired some other key employees and all this turmoil. And yeah, stock price got slashed in. I don't know if it was in half. I think it went down like 60% or 40%, one of those. I forget which one, 2 days after I bought it. Very atypical for a stock, right? Like even for like a tech stock, you still like, you don't expect
Classic crypto, but not
a 40%
really.
swing in one day. So I'm just sitting there like, I'm like a junior in college, like, all right, I got $300 in Zynga. Woo! And then the next day I'm like, hey, Mom, I got $150 in Zynga. I remember my mom being like, hold until you can't hold any longer. And I did, and I eventually sold it for like a break even like 6 years later or something. And of course, at that point, it was like, oh, wow, look, $300. That's cute. I got 30 grand in my portfolio now, or something like that. It's like 5 years removed from being a college student. Things are much different, right? But yeah, I like those experiences. Like I feel like I just dove in the deep end. Like I had no guidance except like, our friend Hyper or Josh, he actually helped me a bit in college, but it was very kind of DIY, and a lot of his help was like, you got to figure out what your strategy is. You got to figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. Like, oh, okay, boss. And one of the things that I did early on was the simulation, where you start with $10,000 in a spreadsheet and you buy stocks and you put them into a portfolio and you like trade however you want and do your thing for like a couple months, and then you see if you can beat the market, if you're ahead or behind. And if you do that like twice, and both those times, both of them, you're like, oh my God, I could have made a lot of money. You immediately have that FOMO of like, okay, I think I understand how this works at least a little bit. Now I'm comfortable. Now I'm going to start buying stocks that actually make sense. And that's when I started actually making money investing, buying like, AMD and Tesla and Amazon and, Disney and stocks that were poised to grow and that kind of stuff. So there is like a real strategy to it. But when you're really new, man, I don't know. Is there some way to explain that feeling of a bear market to somebody in a way that really resonates? Like I feel like it's like doing mushrooms or LSD or something, where it's so different from the normal words we use to express human experiences. It's hard to translate it into words. It's definitely an experience that has a unique feeling, but how do we put it in a package? Like there's no word that I can say that will make you understand what it's like to be on LSD. You know,
Right.
kind of the same way.
Yeah.
Like I don't think there's any word I can say that like will teach you what it's like to hold through an 80% loss that turns into an 80% gain over the course of 2 years or something. I mean, that's just like
Yeah.
that's insanity. That's not a normal thing.
Yeah, and I think the thing that you don't anticipate in the process is, when you're thinking about it in advance and you're sort of like anticipating that the price could go down, 50% tomorrow, and like that's fine, like I don't care. But then when the price goes down 50% tomorrow, your psychology changes. It becomes suddenly more real, and you remember that all of this is real money. And if you had been investing in it, and especially if this is your first time investing in it, your emotions take over more than you would anticipate that they would. And I think it's important to, in one side, pay attention to those emotions and use those to help guide your decisions. I think if you are just getting into this and, these random bumps that have been happening these last few weeks, if they are enough to start to scare you, you might be overexposed in whatever it is that you're doing, because some of these bumps, or eventually one of these bumps, is going to last longer than you are comfortable with. And if that scares you so much that you'll end up selling it past the point where you'd be losing money, maybe it makes more sense to adjust your portfolio in a way that you're more comfortable with. But again, I mean, this is still me kind of trying to grasp at straws and try to help listeners anticipate what it's going to feel like when there's FUD that turns into reality. And
I think
it's not
like
something that's
one thing
easy.
I always go back to is you have to remind yourself that the loss isn't real until you take it. Just like the gain isn't real until you take it. And you've brought this point up before, like with the SHIB coin. Like, okay, so now you've got $1 billion of Shiba Inu coin. It's not real unless you sell it or you can do anything with it. And there's not like liquidity to dump $1 billion worth of Shiba Inu coins, except for maybe some of those key bull moments. So like
Right.
that psychology swings both ways, and that's part of the like hodl forever. Like the hardest part is knowing, hey, when do I cut my losses and when do I hold on for the long term? And that's where it really depends on what you're investing in. Is this some kind of like degen, copycat? Are you on Polycat, farming these stupid tokens that are designed to pump and dump? Then yeah, you need to be prepared to jump ship as soon as you see that death spiral start. But that's a super specific, aggressive, almost like day trader kind of energy, like sort of investing.
Yeah.
If you're buying stuff you actually believe in, like let's say Ethereum, right, at the highest level, that's one of the safest things I can not financially recommend, wink wink, almost recommend, right? Like Ethereum it's a big one, right? As number 2, it's got a lot going on. It's like if you buy Ethereum now and it goes down 50%, I feel confident saying just fucking hold on, man. If you just hold on, like give it 6 months, give it a year. I don't know what the timeline is, but like things are happening, right? And it's not to say Ethereum could never crumble and never death spiral, and that the foundation could never kick itself in the nuts hard enough that things start falling apart. That could totally happen. But in general, if you believe in it, I think that tends to be a good sign to actually hold on. Like it's a simple equation. Do you believe in the prospect long term? If yes, hold on. If no, then look for your time to exit. Watch the markets, wait for a spike, and take the exit. Sometimes taking that 20% loss is way better than the alternative of taking an 80% loss if you think it's going to go down way more. But be careful with that, right? That's the theory. That's the psychology you're fighting against. You're always asking yourself, is it going to go down more? What do I do? And that's
I think
part of the fun.
The other thing that first time investors often forget is that there is a large spectrum between 0% and 100%. If you are going to make a move, it doesn't have to be to hold 100% of it forever or sell 100% of it. Like you can make moves very incrementally based on what's happening and how you're feeling about the investment, about how you're feeling about your portfolio. I think for me, Bitcoin is one where when I had initially bought in, I'm generally a dollar cost averager, so I just kind of slowly scooped up some Bitcoin over time. the longer that I stayed in the space, realized that I'm not really gaining much utility from this. Things don't seem to be going this direction, and have more so like I made a pivot toward focusing more of my time and resources into Ethereum. And as that has played out in DeFi, in NFTs, in Web3, the metaverse, all of these things that we're seeing now more and more, I keep on remembering that Bitcoin's not really involved in any of this. And so I've been kind of slowly doing the opposite, right? Instead of scooping up Bitcoin, I've been slowly selling off my Bitcoin because I don't have a use for it, honestly. And
Dump it.
I think, yeah, I think you had already come to this conclusion before I did, and I think you had made your move. Is that right?
Yes. I have like some moments where I look at things and go, man, the best thing I could have done was just buy it and not touch it. And then I have other moments where you look at that daisy chain and go, yeah, that was a flip into a flip into a flip. That was a good call, you know? So it does cut both ways. You and I have almost polar opposite sort of investment strategies. You're very like low risk. Like you said, you like to cost average in and out. And I'm the kind of guy that if I cost average out, let's say even like 10 or 15%, and there's a big move, I go, oh my God, I just lost so much money if I had just moved all that. To me, the FOMO of seeing a move and then not doing what I feel comfortable doing with because of some logic of like, yeah, but I should play it safe. Oh my gosh, that drives me crazy. And that bothers me more than like the losses. That upsets me less than those moments compared to when I missed it. So I just accept that, I think my expected value on my strategy is positive, but I'm definitely a little more aggressive and, eager to take on risk. The hyper strategy, the shotgun approach, you pepper it out, you buy a little bit of everything and, double down on stuff that seems to be going really crazy. I think I appreciate your perspective, but that ain't me, babe.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of our perspectives balance each other out well. I think there are definitely times where I do what you're describing, where I kind of just, this seems like a good idea. I'm going to do more than I would normally do in this particular thing. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I think the cool part about this space is that there's just so much going on. If you miss something, the next thing's probably just a couple days around the corner. You don't really have to wait that long.
Yeah, no, totally. It is interesting though. I mean, I'm still like kind of poking around for NFTs, and I think everyone is eager to see the game side and the utility of NFTs continue to explode. I mean, I'm a little bit sad that I don't have a Bored Ape. Again, it's like not one that I ever could have really picked up, but I'm intrigued by that whole audience. And like Nike just made a big play where they picked up what is it, RTFK? Did I miss a letter?
That sounds right. I forget.
I might have missed a letter, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Like they did the second MetaKey. That's where at least I had heard of that group. Adidas bought an ape. There's a lot of movement even in these kind of bearish times of these outside brands coming into the crypto and NFT side of stuff. And of course, the right click savers and the haters are in full force. But hey, that's okay, man. I think we're at this point we know what we're doing. We're just going to keep on keeping on and continue building away.
I genuinely do wonder how long that meme is going to continue. Like it. I had an ex-coworker that recently was like, if NFTs end up winning, then I choose the side of piracy. And like, what does piracy actually mean when it comes to NFTs? Does that mean you're gonna like come to people's houses and like take their hardware wallets, or do you mean actually? Are you still talking about right-click saving? Because like I thought maybe we got past this, but I don't know that everyone did.
That's actually interesting. Like I understand the anger of what they're trying to communicate, but like the nature of the technology, that statement seriously just like does not compute. Like you can't like there is like. Well, I think those people think that to them, piracy is I'm going to take the Bored Apes collection and then download it and then mint it on another blockchain. And then I'm going to have my own Bored Apes. And like, because those people have it in their head that one of the worst things about blockchain is that if I'm just a lonely artist that doesn't know anything, somebody can find my art, steal it, and then mint it on the blockchain without my knowledge and sell it. And then once that transaction is done, like, the artist is left out of the equation completely. And that is like a thing, right? Like that has happened.
It definitely has.
That's in just reality, straight thievery though.
Yeah, exactly. in reality, what happens is what I experienced just recently online. There was this guy who has this Twitter bot where you can send it some text. It will reply back with this auto-generated, like AI-driven art piece where it'll take your prompt and just try to come up with something. And it like it's kind of cool looking. I saw one that was like the prompt was something like the expansive emptiness of New York, and it was like it looked like an empty room, but there was like the silhouette of New York skyline in the background and like an empty park bench. Very cool art. And he sold only the physical prints of this, and so I was like, hey, do you sell NFT? Like, do you mint these as NFTs? I'd love to buy one. And he was like, I'm genuinely curious. Like, why would you want an NFT instead of print? And I was like, honestly, like, I don't know if you see my background. Like, I got enough stuff. I don't need any more stuff. I want to support you as an artist, and I kind of want like a momentum or a memento that I can carry with me to show that like this is a piece of art that I like. I can connect that to my ENS and like make that a part of my like Web3 identity in different ways. I could, upload that into a Decentraland plot. Doesn't matter. Of course, there's always like the option that I could just go take this person's artwork and like go mint my own NFT. But like, what is that? What am I gaining from doing that? Like, what I wanted to do was sort of like give some value to this artist for the work that they've done to create this thing.
And that's what most buyers care
about.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're right. That is a muted thing, but I guess I agree with you, obviously. But I think that's where that energy comes from, where they have this really skewed lens of like, well, anything can be stolen and put on the blockchain. So hence the blockchain is just a bunch of stolen stuff. Like that's like the weird non-logical flow that they have in their head, not realizing that like there is still a little bit of centralization, right? Like the check mark matters. Like it's sort of like having a Gucci bag and a knockoff Gucci bag. Like it might sort of look the same just walking by on the street, but when you actually look at it and like compare them 1-to-1, you can see the fucking difference. You know which one is the knockoff.
I don't even know if centralization is the right word there. I think it's just like validation or like verification. You just, if you're going to go buy a piece of art, you will, if you're just doing it for like the lols and the memes, like great, whatever, go copy paste, go attach some, unique identifiers to it and like upload it to a blockchain. No one really cares about that. But if you are going to go purchase art, you will be incentivized to validate that this art has been minted by the artist. And that's just the same as any other signature, right? Like that's, the equivalent of the handbag comparison. And with a blockchain, you can do this in a way that is 100% verifiable. That doesn't really exist in the same way.
Can we maybe throw a wild thesis out there? I'm curious if you agree with this thought. Is every NFT collection that's going to make it, like exist and still have any kind of community years from now, let's say, all of them will revolve around utility, right? And that utility might be utility within the club, right? Like a badge or a status symbol or like it might be kind of internal. It doesn't have to be this big public virtue signal thing. But I think all NFTs, even if they start as art or collectible, the whole thing is moving towards utility or access to the artist, like this sort of fan token type thing. Like that's where a lot of it's moving. Like look at NBA Hot Shots, right? Now it's becoming like a get exclusive access to the players, get to call them or like come to this interview session or like, I think we're just going to see more and more of that stuff because it's just a better value proposition, right? It's more that they can stack on it.
Agreed that we'll definitely see more and more of this. I'm hesitant to say every because like there are definitely artists and people that are like purely into NFTs for the art side. And like I get it. Like that's cool. Like in the same way that
see, but aren't those like if you're in it for the art, doesn't that mean you're in it for the artist as well? And if owning that art piece all of a sudden becomes an access ticket to do anything additional with that artist, like that's that's still utility,
right?
You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Like it can be really simple, or it could even just be like, hey, in the Radiohead fan club, you get this badge that says, hey, I'm one of the exclusive NFT holders. That's still utility. That's like social utility, right? That has like almost tangible value to it.
I'm thinking of the Snoop Dogg's super into the more like of the fidenzas and these artworks that are, generative, and like the ones that don't, they explicitly don't have any other component to it. Like I kind of anticipate that, like in the same way that paintings still exist now that there are more interesting forms of art, I think that like, plain old vanilla JPEGs are probably still going to stick around with JPEGs, or sorry, with NFTs. But I definitely agree that like where the space is moving and where the majority of the exciting things are happening is where there's more utility.
Classic Kevin. I make a really strong, bold statement that is really. I do the classic broadcasting thing. I get us the zingy headline, and you're like, well, the oracles are going to show up, and then everything's going to be really cool, and everyone's going to put on their learning hats. I love it, dude. I love your vibes.
I think we make a great combo.
It is. No, it's good. We definitely have some like counterbalance type action. I had one closing point and I just completely lost it. Something about NFTs and utility and artists and oh man, if it was important, I wouldn't have forgotten. Darn it, I hate when that happens. But it is always a pleasure to talk to you, buddy. This is probably the last stream show episode of anything that I'll have out of Denver this year. So that is pretty exciting. And I am really excited for 2022. We'll probably get a New Year's episode in here, I reckon, at some point. Yeah, man, it's such a cool journey that we're on. 2021 is a really defining year for me. And now being full-time crypto, it's changed my lens on the world. It's changed my lens on a lot of my relationships. And it's just wild. Oh, I remember what I was going to say now. It was about the right-click savers. I was going to say, has this ever existed before? It probably has, but I don't know like a comparable example or what the word for this kind of a gap is, where the right-click savers are objectively just like wrong in this scenario, right? They're not wrong in the sense that like they hate NFTs. They're wrong in the sense that gotcha is not a gotcha. Like nobody that owns an NFT cares about anyone right-click and saving the JPEG, right? So
I'm trying to think of similar corollaries.
And and it's growing too, because the people that own the NFTs, if we say like, yeah, thanks for the free marketing, they think that that's us being cheeky and that like we're just trying to punch back a little bit. But they're like, yeah, look, they take that as evidence that they're getting to us. And if we just ignore it, they also take that as validation of like, look, we're wearing them down kind of a thing. Like, it almost feels like this feedback loop where their side gets stronger, where no matter how we react to them, they interpret our reaction as like, we're really fucking them over with this JPEG saving thing.
I can't believe no one thought to right-click save.
And it's like, it's making us laugh harder, and then the harder we laugh, the more they think they're getting under our skin, and it's like just this ridiculous
I think my
cycle.
response to this previous coworker was like, just don't right-click. Don't screenshot my robot. It'll financially devastate me.
And that's the thing.
Like, I don't know how else to talk about.
They can't tell that that's sarcasm. So they go and then they tell their friends, like, see, look, no, this guy, he owns like an NFT that's worth 8 Ethereum. And he told me that if I screenshot it, it's going to take money away from it. So you guys should go screenshot it right now. Like, there's people literally doing that. Like, we're going to steal part of this JPEG soul if we screenshot it enough times. Like, dude,
it's challenging, man. I don't know how to get across to people that have just made up their minds, and I genuinely try, probably more than I should. I tell myself it's because it's sort of practice for me talking to people that do actually care. Like I think a lot of the conversations that we have are based off of conversations that I've thought through, or arguments that I've gotten into with people that are really against this stuff. And there is definitely a time where like some people just aren't worth the block space, right? Like they're not worth the time of day. They're not worth really like spinning your wheels over.
They're not listening. Yeah, it's just you're wasting your time in terms of no information is going in, and that's a key part of communication. Even if you end up saying, hey, I still don't agree with you, you can reasonably exchange with some people, and some folks you can't even get to that point because the info just won't go in. But Yeah, it's particularly funny with stuff like Axes because, of course, it's like, I think it makes me laugh hard because I think of that example that you typed to me one time where somebody shows up to like get on the yacht at the Board Yacht 8 Club and they show up with their phone and they've got the JPEG and it's like, sir, that's just a picture of a monkey. Like I can see that person just like is that the moment when it finally clicks? Is that like the equivalent of a flat earther when you shoot them up in the rocket and they see that it's not flat and they're just like, fuck. All right, I guess I was wrong. Just like take a screenshot of my Mystic Axe. Yeah, let me know when you can use it in land gameplay. But that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Cool picture.
Let me know how much you sell it for.
Yeah, that's they always double down on that one with like, well, I don't want to sell it because it's worth so much. Like, yeah, okay,
yeah.
you got
like
me.
You're so close to getting it.
You got me. Yeah, you're right there. All right. Well, I got to get out of here, Kevin. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Happy Christmas, Happy New Year, happy everything else. Never financial advice, of course, but we've enjoyed all of you here on the New Blocks. We're doing these Twitter Spaces every other Wednesday night, so not super friendly for European time zone, but okay for Asia, okay for North America. Keep an eye out for those on Twitter. I've been hosting them on Twitter. My Twitter, ZyoriTV, but look out for Kevin. Look out for JD Hyper because they've been co-hosting it with me. It's been a blast, bud. Here's to an epic 2022 ahead.
Peace.